Let's be clear about what we're watching. This isn't a vacation. This isn't a failure. It's a strategy, a deliberate, calculated use of absence as a weapon. We think of power as this loud, explosive thing, a big public fight. But sometimes the most dangerous move is the quietest one. 1 minute, the gears of government are turning. The next, silence. The machine has just been switched off. Suddenly, there are no votes. The entire process just stops.
There are no hearings, no one has to answer for anything.
There are just no answers. Only a void where a government should be. And that silence is the entire point. Which brings us to our first section, power leaves the room. This isn't about a system failing, it's about a strategic retreat being used as a show of force. You have to understand, this was a choice. Mike Johnson didn't just let the house go dark. He actively pulled the plug, right at the moment a crisis demanded action. So, on the surface, the assumption is simple. It's a recess, right? They're on vacation. But the strategic reality is something else entirely. Mike Johnson has weaponized absence, freezing the one body that can act and turning that paralysis into a form of absolute control. So, where does an idea like this come from? Well, this isn't new. There's a playbook for it, a very old, very cynical one. It's about ruling through obstruction. Let's give it a name, parliamentary silence. It's the idea that a shutdown isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature, a weapon you use to dodge responsibility, to wear down your opponents, and, most importantly, to control the clock when you know you can't win the fight. And this goes way, way back. Machiavelli wrote about it centuries ago. It's a 3-step guide to escaping a political corner. Step 1, you delay, hoping the outrage dies down. Step 2, if that doesn't work, you obscure the truth, confuse the issue. And step 3, the final move, you just vanish. You leave the room and let the silence do your dirty work. So what most of us see as incompetence or just total dysfunction, through a Machiavellian lens, it's actually a display of discipline. It's about creating leverage out of thin air and evading a political battle you're destined to lose. Okay, let's make this real. How does the strategy actually work in practice? It all comes down to creating a legislative choke point, and it was triggered by a single horrific event. So, a crisis erupts. The Senate responds by making a change to a critical funding bill. Now, here's the key. By law, any change means that bill must go back to the House for another vote. But the House isn't there. The bill is now trapped. The system isn't broken. It's been perfectly, intentionally frozen. And that's the whole game. Mike Johnson doesn't need to control the debate. He just controls the gate. And by locking it, he shuts down the entire city without ever having to fight. He doesn't have to win the argument. He just makes sure the argument can never happen. But here's the twist. A strategy this cold, this absolute, it comes at a cost. And we're starting to see deep, deep cracks forming inside the Maga Republican coalition itself. The signs are pretty obvious if you know where to look. You've got Republican senators breaking ranks, even calling for investigations. You've got friendly media asking questions they wouldn't have dared to ask a month ago. The most dangerous moment isn't when your enemies are shouting, it's when your friends start to whisper. See, Mike Johnson's silence isn't neutral. It's positioning. While other MAGA Republicans are forced out into the open to defend the indefensible, taking all the political heat, he stays above it all, untouchable. It's a calculated move to preserve his own deniability. So, what's the ultimate price of all this silence? It's bigger than one political moment. It is about the long-term decay of our institutions. Think about it like this. When a leader dodges accountability, that blame doesn't just disappear into thin air. It has to go somewhere, and it gets absorbed by the institution itself. Trust erodes, not just in the leader, but in the entire system they represent. And we have seen this before. History is screaming warnings at us. In late Republican Rome, they learned to just stop the Senate from meeting to avoid losing. In Weimar Germany, total paralysis of the government came right before the final collapse into authoritarianism. The pattern is always the same. Institutions stop working long before they actually fall. And that's really the core of it, isn't it? The damage is real. It builds up. Every single time a leader runs from accountability, the foundation of the very institution they lead gets weaker. So the lights might be off in the House of Representatives. The halls may be empty. But don't think for a second that no one is watching. History is writing all of this down. The record of this moment is permanent. Which leaves us with a final, chilling question. Delay is a shield, but it's a temporary one. Time eventually runs out. The crisis will come back. A confrontation becomes inevitable. So, what happens then? What happens when the silence ends and there's nowhere left to hide?